Reading the Gospel of Luke in chapter 12, we find Jesus explaining that he did not come to give peace on earth, but rather division. Father against son, son against father, wheat against tare. He says, when you see a cloud rise out of the west, you know that a shower is coming, and a wind from the south tells you that heat is on the way. Yet you cannot see what this time actually is. You cannot discern it. Jesus is talking about people who can only interpret the corporeal, the worldly, not the spiritual world where God can be found. And in the corporeal world, Satan's world, the spirit of Antichrist abounds. It's where the natural man lives. This is why Psalms 118:8 reminds us it is always better to trust in the Lord than to put confidence in man. Man is flawed, easily influenced, easily tricked. As it was said in 2 Corinthians, but I fear lest by any means, as the serpent beguiled Eve through his subtlety, so your minds should be corrupted from the simplicity that is in Christ. I was a New Ager before I was born again, and so this verse in 2 Corinthians is very meaningful to me. New Age, and a lot of lukewarm Christianity also, is corrupting and confusing the simplicity of Christ. The New Age world is enticing to a lot of people because it sounds inclusive and accepting. It sounds progressive, but it purposefully confuses the path to salvation with a path to enlightenment, trusting yourself instead of God. A true Christian knows the difference. In 1 John, in chapter 4, hereby know ye the Spirit of God. Every spirit that confesses that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh is of God, and every spirit that confesses not that he has come in the flesh is not of God. And this is a spirit of Antichrist. Now, I don't normally pay attention to celebrities, but I did listen to quite a few interviews in order to create a compilation of comments and conversations about religion, about God, from various celebrities. This compilation demonstrates the mumbo jumbo of the New Age.
Now, as we're talking before about the series called Belief,
yeah.
Is there a difference for you between faith and belief?
Yeah, there is, because there are a lot of people who don't think that they are faithful people, but have beliefs. You know, you cannot be in the world without believing in something, even if you don't call it a deity. So there are people who believe in working hard and striving for their best, and but don't have that necessary religious belief. And faith is very different. I think faith is knowing that no matter what, you're going to be okay. And I've always been a part of that faithful. I used to be a little preacher. So when I was...
How little? Like, how little are we talking here?
I'm talking like 7, 8, 9, 12, 15. And then... when I was in 3rd grade, people used to call me, here come that preacher girl again.
Were you preaching the gospel at them?
I was preaching the gospel. Yes, I was.
Wow.
I would remember the Bible verses and passages.
Do you have a favorite passage from the Bible?
Yes, I do. Do you?
I do.
Okay, let's hear yours.
So I like it. Mine's from Matthew. I like it because Jesus says, so I say to you, do not worry, for who among you by worrying could change a hair on his head or add a cubit to the span of his life? What I like about it is that it's a commandment to not worry, and I'll go with that. I'll go with that.
Love
I
that.
can't live it. I can't do it.
Yeah.
But I like that. It's not like try not to worry. So I say to you, do not worry.
Ooh, I
Yeah.
love that.
So if you worry, you're being disobedient.
That's right. If you worry, you're sinning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So how about you?
Okay, mine is Psalms 37:4. Delight thyself.
Oh.
I love the word delight, don't you? And I'm so,
Yeah.
I'm so glad that David knew it.
Oh, David was into delighting himself.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, how about these stories?
No, wait.
Well, yeah.
Delight thyself in the Lord. He will give you the desires of your heart. Now, what that says to me, Lord has a wide range. What is Lord? Compassion, love, forgiveness, kindness. So you delight yourself in those virtues where the character of the Lord is revealed. Delight thyself in goodness, delight thyself in love, kindness, and compassion, and you will receive the desires of your heart.
Oh, that's
Don't
interesting.
you like that?
Yeah.
It says to me, if you focus on being a force for good, then goodness will come, which is also the third law of motion, which is also the karma, which is also the golden rule.
Which is also The Secret, all that book, The Secret, too.
Do you believe in God?
Me?
Creator?
Yeah, so I'm, the more I look at the universe, just the less convinced I am that there is something benevolent going on. So if your concept of a creator is someone who's all powerful and all good, that's not an uncommon pairing of powers that you might ascribe to a creator. All powerful and all good. And I look at disasters that afflict Earth and life on Earth. Volcanoes, hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, disease, pestilence, congenital birth defects. You look at this list of ways that life is made miserable on Earth by natural causes. And I just ask, how do you deal with that? So philosophers rose up and said, if there is a God, God is either not all powerful or not all good. I have no problems if, as we probe the origins of things, we bump up into the bearded man. If that shows up, we're good to go. Okay? Not a problem. There's just no evidence of it. And this is why religions are called faiths, collectively. Because you believe something in the absence of evidence. That's what it is. That's why it's called faith. Otherwise, we would call all religions evidence. But we don't, for exactly that reason. So I'm given what everyone describes to be the properties that would be expressed by an all-powerful being in the gods that they worship. I look for that in the universe and I don't find it.
Mr. Ham and his followers have this remarkable view of a worldwide flood that somehow influenced everything that we observe in nature. A 500-foot wooden boat, 8 zookeepers for 14,000 individual animals, every land plant in the world underwater for a full year. I ask us all, is that really reasonable? You'll hear a lot about the Grand Canyon, I imagine, also, which is a remarkable place, and it has fossils. And the fossils in the Grand Canyon are found in layers. There is not a single place in the Grand Canyon where the fossils of one type of animal cross over into the fossils of another. In other words, when there was a big flood on the earth, you would expect drowning animals to swim up to a higher level. Not any one of them did. Not a single one. If you could find evidence of that, my friends, you could change the world.
I have a strong desire to direct that gratitude toward something or someone.
Of course.
And that thing is God.
We're mortal. We want to make sense of nature and science, and it's too unfathomable that everything in the universe was once crunched into something smaller than an atom.
But you don't know that.
Well.
You're just believing Stephen Hawking, and that's a matter of faith in his abilities.
Yes.
You don't know it yourself. You're accepting that because someone told you.
Yeah, well, but science is constantly proved all the time. You see,
in science, we always say that you make observations, you have a theory, you go make more observations, and it's a very, very tedious process. Wrong. Nobody that I know of in my field uses the so-called scientific method.
if we take something like any fiction, in any holy book, in any other fiction, and destroyed it, okay, in 1,000 years' time, that wouldn't come back just as it was. Whereas if we took every science book, right, and every fact, and destroyed them all, in 1,000 years they'd all be back, because all the same tests would be the same result.
That's good. That's really good.
So
That's really good.
I don't need faith in science. I don't need faith to know that probably if I jump out of a window, every other time someone jumps out, they smash to the ground because of this thing called gravity.
All right, final question to close our time out here.
Yeah, I mean, we're here. We're, the Babylon Bee is a Christian organization, and we're a ministry.
Well, how come we're doing the show on a Sunday?
On Sunday. This is church. We're gathered.
Why aren't you heathens in church?
Exactly. So we have to make it church right now.
This is supposed to be a day of rest.
We did Zoom church.
To justify.
God said, don't work on Sundays. Okay. Guys are going straight to hell for this one.
Get into the whole Jesus rest thing. Okay.
Straight to hell.
This is church. This is church. So to make this church, we have to make sure. We're wondering if you could do us a quick solid and accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior.
On the show.
Personal Lord and Savior. It's a quick prayer.
I mean, let's just say, I agree with the principles that Jesus advocated, and there's great wisdom in the teachings of Jesus, and I agree with those teachings. And things like turn the other cheek are very important, because as opposed to an eye for an eye. An eye for an eye leads everyone blind. So forgiveness, is important, and treating people as you would wish to be treated. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Very important.
So it's like a 60-70%. Yes.
As Einstein would say, I believe in the God of Spinoza. But hey, if Jesus is saving people, I mean, I wouldn't stand in his way. I'll be sure, I'll be saved. Why not?
Sweet, we did it.
Yeah.
I think you just said yes.
We got him.
All right.
We got him.
Yes. That we should be reminded that love is important. Tolerance is probably the most effective way of interaction with other people. Forgiveness is extremely important in life.
I like that. Religious. Are you religious? Do you believe in something? Anything?
Yeah, I believe in me.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you don't believe in anything else?
Anything else?
Well, it's a religious thing. Like, is it in God, or is there something like that?
Well, you can separate God from religion, which that's what I do. I believe in God. I believe in me. Same person.
Any superstitions going into the game? Any special thing you carried into the game on Sunday that you had tucked away somewhere?
I did. I always, I've learned a lot from my wife over the years. She's so about the power of intention, and believing things that are really going to happen. And she always makes a little altar for me at the game, because she just wills it so much. And so she put together a little altar for me that I could bring with pictures of my kids. And I have these little special stones and healing stones and protection stones. And she has me wear a necklace and take these drops she makes. And I say all these mantras. And I stopped questioning her a long time ago. I did. I just shut up and listened. And at first I was like, this is kind of crazy. And then about 4 years ago, we were playing the Seahawks, and she said, you better listen to me. This is your year, but this is all the things you're going to have to do to win. And I did all those things, and by God, it worked. It was pretty good. And then in 2015, it was about early January, and she said, you know how much I love you? And I said, yeah. And she said, I just want to let you know this is not going to be your year. Oh. And of course, we lost. I said, what does 16 look like? And she said, 16 is going to be your year. So it was early January this year, and I said, babe, asking, do we have a chance? And she said, yeah, but you're going to have to do a lot of work, and you're really going to have to listen to me. So, man, I listened to her. And right after the game, she said, see, I did a lot of work. You do your work, I do mine. She said, you're lucky you married a witch. I'm just a good witch.
What is God? For me, is my idea of consciousness. God is not a thing, something you can necessarily see. It is within everything and outside of everything. So I believe that God, the absolute, whatever you want to call it, the self, is unchanging, is therefore pretty much everything I'm seeing has an element of God, but you couldn't call it God because everything changes. You, me, where we're sitting, this river, this planet has a life cycle, birth, death. But my feeling about God is that it exists beyond that, beyond those laws of nature. It was somehow, it is somehow separate to the laws of time, matter, space. And that's about as close as I've come to any realization of what God is.
I mean, you are. Am I wrong here? You are religious in some way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to bring this up in this day and age when people go, no, I'm not religious, I'm only spiritual. You know what the Latin root of religion is? Re-legare. And legare means to bind together. Re means again. Well, in a world that's saying I'm only spiritual because I want unity, that's exactly what religion means. We've bastardized the meaning of it over time, and we've excluded people, and we've corporatized it and such. But yes, I am religious.
Like, are you taking the Bible at its literal word, or do you use it as some sort of a guidebook of the experiences of these people that lived thousands of years ago that have been translated from multiple different languages back to English? And is there wisdom in those translations? Is there wisdom in those original thoughts, these thousands of years of people contemplating and mulling on these things, and that so many have used these as a scaffolding for morals and ethics and for societies?
Yep. It's I mean, you know, for people that go, oh, it's a circus book, or people that non-believers, and I'm like, well, it's still the best one going. There's a lot of great truths that come out of the Bible, and it is open for, and a lot of people, it has been interpreted and reinterpreted. It has been translated. It has been handed down. I, for myself, I don't know what to do in my daily life with the burning bush. I don't know what to do with that. I do know what to do with love your neighbor like yourself. I do know what to do with Matthew 6:22. If thy eye be single, thy whole body will be full of light. I do know what to do with some proverbs that I can take into daily practice and go, oh, I felt my life. I felt improvement. I felt success in my relationships, in my relationship with the day, with my career, by following that, by treating others how I wanted to be treated, the golden rule. So I take the practical stuff myself. And try to utilize it and pick out what can work for me.
When you say you don't know what to do with the burning bush, like what do you mean by that?
I don't know what to do on a daily basis with the teaching of, and then he showed up as a burning bush, or the magic tricks, and I don't know what to do with, and Jesus healed everyone and he couldn't walk, and now he touched him and he can walk. I don't know what to do with that. Mm-hmm. I don't know how to take that into my life and go, oh, there's something useful and practical and healthy for you, Matthew, that you can practice there. So the magic that leans in towards, what we would call now more fantasy, I don't know what to do with that. There's philosophies, there's proverbs, and there's teachings that I think are very valid and very helpful, that we could all be reminded of, that are in the Bible, that I do find quite useful.
Okay, so Oprah says, if we delight in the qualities of the Lord, not the Lord himself, but his qualities, kindness and forgiveness, and then we're going to receive the delights of our hearts. This is not the gospel that I've learned. Matthew McConaughey says that he doesn't know quite what to do with the magic, otherwise known as the miracles performed by Jesus. And Tom Brady is married to a witch.
I'm Morgan Freeman. I'm not a doctor, but I trust science. And I'm told that for some reason people trust me. So here I am to say, I trust science and I got the vaccine. If you trust me, you'll get the vaccine.
Yes, Morgan Freeman, who is self-professed as a trustworthy voice in the world, thinks he is the same as God, but doesn't believe in God. That's actually confusing. I think it goes without saying that these are absolute distortions of the truth, leading people astray. Nowhere in these descriptions do we hear about Jesus as our Savior, the most important component. And sadly, their opinions are somehow important to a lot of people. People listen to them, they follow them, idolize them even. It's really a sad state of affairs, but I would like you to meet Edward Bernays, the man who helped make all of this possible.
When I came back to the United States, I decided that if you could use propaganda for war, you could certainly use it for peace. And propaganda got to be a bad word because of the Germans using it. So what I did was to try to find some other words. So we found the word Council on Public Relations.
Bernays returned to New York and set up as a public relations counsel in a small office off Broadway. It was the first time the term had ever been used. Since the end of the 19th century, America had become a mass industrial society, with millions clustered together in the cities. Bernays was determined to find a way to manage and alter the way these new crowds thought and felt. To do this, he turned to the writings of his uncle Sigmund. While in Paris, Bernays had sent his uncle a gift of some Havana cigars. In return, Freud had sent him a copy of his general introduction to psychoanalysis. Bernays read it, and the picture of hidden irrational forces inside human beings fascinated him. This series is about how those in power have used Freud's theories to try and control the dangerous crowd in an age of mass democracy. At the heart of the story is not just Sigmund Freud, but other members of the Freud family. This episode is about Freud's American nephew, Edward Bernays. Bernays is almost completely unknown today, but his influence on the 20th century was nearly as great as his uncle's. Because Bernays was the first person to take Freud's ideas about human beings and use them to manipulate the masses. He showed American corporations for the first time how they could make people want things they didn't need by linking mass-produced goods to their unconscious desires. Out of this would come a new political idea of how to control the masses. By satisfying people's inner selfish desires, one made them happy and thus docile. It was the start of the all-consuming self, which has come to dominate our world today. Bernays set out to experiment with the minds of the popular classes. His most dramatic experiment was to persuade women to smoke. At that time, there was a taboo against women smoking, and one of his early clients, George Hill, the president of the American Tobacco Corporation, asked Bernays to find a way of breaking it. A. Brill was one of the first psychoanalysts in America, and for a large fee, he told Bernays that cigarettes were a symbol of the penis and of male sexual power. He told Bernays that if he could find a way to connect cigarettes with the idea of challenging male power, then women would smoke, because then they would have their own penises. Every year, New York held an Easter Day parade to which thousands came, and Bernays decided to stage an event there. He persuaded a group of rich debutantes to hide cigarettes under their clothes. Then they should join the parade, and at a given signal from him, they were to light up the cigarettes dramatically. Bernays then informed the press that he had heard that a group of suffragettes were preparing to protest by lighting up what they called torches of freedom.
A symbol, women, young women, debutantes, smoking a cigarette in public with a phrase that means anybody who believes in this kind of equality pretty much has to support them in the ensuing debate about this, because torches of freedom.
Every metaphor and analogy has to come from somewhere. Perhaps they are rare pearls that drop from the pens of an elite corps of bards and scribblers and then are hoarded by a grateful populace. But given their prevalence in language, it seems more likely that they are the natural products of the way everyone's mind works.
And so the next day, this was not just in all of the New York papers, it was across the United States and around the world. And from that point forward, the sale of cigarettes to women began to rise. He had made them socially acceptable.
We are not just easily manipulated. We are targeted for manipulation. Everything we consume has been carefully designed to provoke an action from us. Anger, envy, adoration, you name it. Movies, magazines, social media, and of course, celebrities, the presence of celebrities. Just as Bernays' debutantes kickstarted a wave of women smokers, celebrities today heavily influence people's beliefs, especially younger people, how they dress, how they vote, even what religion, if any, they practice. We can be rest assured that their opinions matter to some. Going back to the simplicity of Christ, it makes sense that the Bible asks us to trust in the Lord and not man. It makes sense that He has warned us time and time again to only trust in Him, to rely on Him, to follow Him. And it makes sense that John says, even now already exists the spirit of Antichrist in the world, because the spirit of Antichrist has always been here, always working against the children of God in one form or fashion. We know the beast system will be an earthly kingdom. It will be worldwide. It will be powerful. It'll be a corporation of sorts, fueled with Antichrist spirit, and currently awaiting their new CEO, the Antichrist. We're seeing its creation unfold very rapidly. And Edward Bernays, for me, is like the original communications manager, lying and manipulating, just like his boss inspired him to do. As things get more and more complicated and confusing, and we are told that they will, even for the elect, it's important to remember how simple the path is, how simple the answer is. We will know them by their fruits. And it may seem obvious today, but coming soon, it may be less clear. And so I think it's so important to realize what the litmus test is. Every spirit that confesses that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is of God. Until next time.
Well, I think we all know if it bleeds, it leads.
If it bleeds, it leads. CNN embraced Director Chester's philosophy of the news.
Do you think it's going to be just like a lot of like fear? Like, time it.
Yeah, fear sells. Fear sells.
fear. Like, fear really drives numbers. Fear is the thing that keeps you tuned in. COVID, gangbusters at ratings, right? Which is why we constantly have the death toll on the side. I've even looked at it and be like, let's make it higher. My director tells me take it down, and I take it down, and then we get a phone call, like the bat phone like rings in the back, literally a red phone, like this special red phone rings, and this producer picks it up, and you're mop, 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 mop. It's like the head of the network being like, there's nothing that you're doing right now that makes me want to stick. Put the numbers back up.
Why don't you guys at CNN show the recovery rates on the death tolls at least?
Because that's not scary. If it bleeds, it leads. There's no such thing as unbiased news. The most unbiased news is grassroots, out of people's basements with podcasts. I don't think CNN's any different than Fox. I think it's on the different side of it. I think they come off as very altruistic, but I think we bury the lead. Listen to the way they ask questions, because they're not actually asking questions. What they're actually doing is they're telling the person what to say. It's an art format. We've led them to talk about how we want them to talk about it. It's always like leading them in a direction before they even open their mouth. And the only people that we let on the air, the most part, are people that have a proven track record of taking the bait. There's like an art to manipulation. You ever meet somebody that like you feel like you're being gaslit by? Start to listen to how they word things, inflection, saying things like twice, like there's little subtleties to how to manipulate people. It's enough to change the world. It can shape an entire people's perception about anything.